if you have a certain personality where you really want to be an investor, you really want to buy something, then probably one of the best qualities you can have is patience.
I've just told myself, hey, this is kind of a building year because, if you got to keep marketing, and then eventually people are going to start selling again, people are going to start buying again.
The way I like to phrase this, I heard somebody say this, it's the courage not to quit.
Yeah.
It's like having the courage not to quit.
This is great, but then you see all these gurus that are buying expensive cars or moving up in house. And I was so scared to do that because I was like, what if the deals dry up?
Willingness to say, hey, if this isn't working, what else will?
There's tons of good investors, good property managers that you've probably never heard of. But if you're a bad one, people are going to know about it,
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Spencer Sutton, and I've got Adam Hobson with me. Adam, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks, Spencer. Good to be here.
Great to be here. I thought we'd do something just a little bit different today. We've been interviewing a lot of great real estate investors from around the country. We've been talking based on our experience, like different strategies, how people should think about buying properties. We've talked about wholesaling, flipping, buying and holding, rentals. We've talked about owner financing stuff, but I thought what we would do is we'd kind of step back and take a look at, so those are a lot of the things we've been talking about are like tactics and strategy. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is I want to step back and talk about what is it, like what are the intangibles that make an investor successful? And there's probably several, we wrote down several here, and we're just going to pick a few and talk about them and just kind of, because I think it's probably a really, really good thing for investors to know themselves well. And to think that you just like, hey, one size fits all is not true, because there's a lot of intangibles that you probably need to have that you and I have learned over the course of many years. Mm-hmm. And, successes, failures in real estate, all kinds of bumps and bruises along the way. But I thought we'd talk about those today.
Yeah, for sure. And the only thing I can say to that is, I think I'm fortunate that I didn't come from a real estate background, because I didn't know anything coming into it. And I think sometimes, and you tell me if I'm wrong, you had this kind of let's say your granddad had rentals, and then your dad, had a property management company or whatever. You've seen how they've done things, and maybe stuff that worked back in the 50s and 60s, you have to pivot and it's a little different now. Or you've just got this one track mind of, hey, my dad always got a loan from the bank, and then he bought a house. He paid it off in 20 years and he rented it out, and that's what he does. So that's what I do, Right. And you just have this kind of one idea versus me. When I got into it, I was like, well, I don't know. What does the title company do? What does that mean? Is it like a car? And then I had to figure that out. And you're like, what kind of contract do I use? So you get all these different perspectives of, wholesaling and owner finance and rent to own and traditional rentals and Airbnb, all this different stuff. So, I think being able to, for me personally, being able to not come from that real estate background was that let me, kind of see which path I wanted to take and see these different views that different people had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to me, it's like, as humans, I think it's built in, we want something for as little as possible. we want to achieve success with as little effort as possible. And from what I can tell, from all the successful real estate investors, that I've known over the past 20 years, it doesn't really happen like that, right? Mm-hmm. There's always a cost to it. And so I thought we'd dive in here and just look at, and then the strategy, if you have these, then whatever strategy you choose from or whatever tactic you use, if you have these, then, it'll usually work out.
That's right. Whether it's real estate or not, you're probably going to be successful in it.
That's right.
Whatever industry it is.
That's right. Yeah. Whether it's real estate or not. That's great. That's a great point. Okay, so intangibles. Let's go with number one. I would say patience is number one.
For sure.
That's kind of what I think about. And the reason I think about patience is because market cycles come and go. interest rates rise, interest rates are low. There's a lot of different things. Deals come in front of your desk all the time. And if you have a certain personality where you really want to be an investor, you really want to buy something, then probably one of the best qualities you can have is patience, because you just have to remain focused on your objectives, on your goals, and not pull the trigger too much and maybe buy the wrong deal. What do you think about patience?
Yeah, so I'll say I was a very impatient young man in my early 20s, and then, we had kids, and I was like, okay, well, having kids teaches you patience. Nothing like getting into real estate. I thought I had learned patience by having kids. When you get into real estate, you're like, wow, this is like, you have to have so much patience, like you're talking about, because deals that are supposed to close in a week and it comes out to 2 months because there's title issues, or you're trying to get, especially if you're trying to get your very first deal, you're trying to get your first deal, and it's just not happening. Some people may say, well, this just doesn't work, but if you have that patience like you're talking about, and you can wait it out and you can kind of follow your process, whatever that is, yeah, patience is huge.
Yeah, and I don't think I learned this at the very beginning, because we bought a franchise, and so the franchise model was very dialed in back in 2003 and 2004. So it was essentially, we put money in and we received leads back. So we didn't have to go through the bandit. We didn't go through the bandit sign phase. We didn't go through trying to figure out direct mail. Wasn't as competitive back then, and so patience is something I learned when I started buying rentals. And just the patience with residents, the patience with a return, not getting the money you thought that you were going to get. So to me, patience didn't happen all at once. But I think you were taught it from a very beginning, like at the very beginning, just going out there and putting up bandit signs and trying to wait on that first deal, like you were talking about.
Yeah. And I was still super impatient. Like I wanted, whenever I do something, still to this day, if I get a house, I'm like, okay, I got to sell it. Like, why is it not selling today? Like I did something wrong. I didn't run the numbers right. I want it done now. But I think patience more than anything for me is with the people in the real estate industry you have to deal with, whether it's like, because you get a good agent, a good title company, a good attorney, man, it's like, hey, you can't miss. It's great. You're dealing with people there again. You do it. You go with somebody else's title company or somebody else's agent, and you're like, I've emailed this person 10 times a day. I just want a yes, no, I'm working on it. Like, you can tell me, hey, I'm tired of you calling, but I'll update you every day.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just tell me no news. So anyway, patience with other people is my biggest hiccup still,
Right.
But I'm working on it.
It's interesting because people don't always do what they say they're going to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got to have patience.
Yeah.
And some people's personality they have more patience naturally in their natural wiring, but not me, not you, obviously. All right. So let's talk about resilience and grit. So patience is one thing. That's the ability to wait. So if I was thinking about buying a deal and a deal comes across my table, 1, 2, 3. Am I going to have the patience to wait it out until the deal is right? So I'm not so anxious that I have to buy something because even if it doesn't, or when it doesn't make sense. That's patience. But let's talk about resilience and grit, because that's something else. Because when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking, well, yeah, there's patience, but there's also a lot of friction along the way. There's a lot of disappointment along the way. And are you going to keep going and not give up? So talk about what you think. When you think about resilience and grit, what do you think about?
Well, I mean, first thing is, since I started out wholesaling, I mean, I think the statistics is something like 90% of wholesalers, maybe more, quit within the first year, because wholesaling is like the idea is very simple, like you're the middleman, kind of like an agent is. You put a property in a contract, you're selling the contract. It's a very simple concept, but it's very hard to do. Like you can get in with very little money, but most people, they do it for 2 or 3 months and they're marketing and all this stuff, and like they're not getting a deal. They just quit and say it doesn't work. To me, that grit and resilience, especially in wholesaling, trying to get that first deal, the first few deals, 90% of people quit because they don't have that grit, that determination to stick in there. When I started, I was like, hey, I don't really have a choice. Like, I want to make a lot of money, and this is the way I see it can happen. So anyway,
but there's a bit of faith with that too, right? You didn't really know if it was going to happen, but you were just like, hey, I'm putting up these bandit signs, I'm waiting, phone's not ringing, or then when the phone started ringing, this wasn't a deal, this wasn't a deal, this wasn't a deal, you could have gotten really discouraged and say, hey, I'm spending all this time, I'm out here in the middle of the night doing this work and nothing's happening. And it's easy to give up when that's the case.
Oh, I can remember specifically, like I'd gotten one deal for like $5,000 in November of 2018. And I had, I'd been doing it for 3 or 4 months already, and when another 3 or 4 months went by, and there was just when the hedge funds were in Birmingham a lot, buying up all this stuff, I was going to get this one deal for like $18,000, biggest check I'd ever seen in my life. 7 days out from closing, they just moved out of the market. They had like 50 houses under contract. They dropped them with everybody. Like I was so mad and upset. Like I literally told my wife, I got to go run. I don't even remember how far I ran that day. I just went and took off because I was so just pissed off, and like I was like, I don't know what to do. I just had to go get this frustration out, you know. It was either going to be that or go fight some random person. That's not a great idea.
It's not a good
idea. Patience, resilience. I wanted to quit so many times just because it wasn't working. And it's so frustrating, It's an emotional roller coaster. But if you don't quit, eventually you're going to win. May take 6 months, may take a year, may take 5 years. But if you don't quit, eventually you're gonna figure it out.
The way I like to phrase this, I heard somebody say this: it's the courage not to quit. Yeah. It's like having the courage not to quit. Because if you're getting into real estate, just understand you're going to get like kicked in the teeth. Some of the very first deals I did fell through. Some of or almost did fell through. Some of the first rentals I bought were the wrong rentals, and I had problems with the residents. What happens when your resident doesn't pay if you're like trying to build a portfolio? Well, you could quit if you could quit. Now, the challenge is it's not like houses aren't so liquid that you can just like sell them on the stock market. Yeah. So you're kind of committed at that point, but it takes resilience to there's not ever been a successful real estate investor that I've ever known that's not had to have that grit and resilience, because it's not always perfect. And I think a lot of gurus make it seem like it's always perfect and always great, and it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, even right now, people are talking about, there's some gurus will talk about, hey, if you do this, you're never going to be without deals. I don't care who you are. Businesses slow down. You can't tell me during 2008 that everybody was still the same, getting just as many deals. It was the whole country shut down. Not shut down, but whole country was feeling it. And like this year has been the slowest year I've had since 2019. And it's been a challenge to find houses. I talked to a wholesaler the other day, and he works for like a kind of a nationwide wholesaling company. And I bought a few houses from him in Birmingham. And I said, how's it going? He's like, man, I sold, 11 houses last month. I was like, oh, that's great. I was like, why didn't you send any to me? He was like, none in Alabama. He was like, we were getting 0 deals in Alabama. He said, all of these are from other states. And I said, well, that's good for me to hear, because, and I've talked to 4 or 5 other people the same way. We're all spending money in marketing, but stuff's just not coming in like it was, Yeah. So there again, this year I've just told myself, hey, this is kind of a building year, because, if you got to keep marketing, and then eventually people are going to start selling again, people are going to start buying again. And this is nothing like 2008. It's just, I think maybe we're back to a normal market,
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, we had phenomenal market back in
22, 21,
22. It was incredible. Low interest rates, deals were flying off the shelves. And even in our business, we're managing 20,000 properties. Our business has slowed way down, right? Now ours is a recurring revenue business because people are still paying rent. But investors are not buying now, right? So we manage for a lot of institutions, and it would be easy for us to get discouraged and say, well, it's not as good as it was. We're not acquiring as many companies. We're not getting as many houses as we want to. But we just know we have to stay on course. We just have to stay disciplined to do the things that we know we need to do, and eventually it'll get better.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Well, while we're on this topic, I know we may skip down a little bit, but adaptability, I think that's exactly.
Yeah. So this was the third one, adaptability. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just going to say, like you're saying the exact same thing. Under this topic, like markets change, we can't control rent or interest rates or, government regulations, whatever it is. And, we're in a weird political environment right now. We're in a weird real estate environment, and everything from loan officers to property managers to contractors to all this stuff is, held up by real estate, So like there's contractors that call me every week off of signs that I have, and they're like, hey, do you have any work, I see you rehab houses. We need work really bad. Even people I've used before are calling me every week. Hey, do you have anything to, any work, because of just, it's kind of slow right now.
Yeah. So talk about this though, because I think your story is a good one that highlights adaptability. So you need to be adaptable. And I think your story is good because you started out wholesaling and then you went and figured out the rental thing. So you bought some rentals and now what you're doing is completely different from all that. Then you've done flips and then you've done owner financing.
Yeah. So and a couple of small commercial deals, nothing huge yet.
That's right. A couple of small commercial deals. So talk about the adaptability, even in your strategy, figuring out, because real estate investors really don't know when they first get into it, what's best suited for me. Yeah. But this kind of been something you've done over the past 8 years of just trying to figure that out. So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I think what helped me was, honestly, this scarcity mindset. I know people you're not really supposed to have that. You're supposed to have this, abundance mindset. And there's all kinds of gurus that teach it the wrong way and all this stuff, but we're not getting into that. But I had this scarcity mindset of, okay, I could see, even when deals were great in 2020, 2021, doing 40 or 50 wholesale deals a year, it's what happens? This is great, but then you see all these gurus that are buying expensive cars or moving up in house. And I was so scared to do that because I was like, what if the deals dry up? I talked to so many people from 2008 that were in the business and I was not. And I'm really thankful that I wasn't, because I don't know what would have happened. But
shout out to our buddy Brian Miles.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, but yeah, adaptability for sure, because I've talked to those guys and they're like, we were just trying to make it through that time, So, but anyway, all that to say, I was always like, well, what if the deal dries up? What if, so I took that money and the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't really live any different lifestyle. I just, I would buy another piece of property and then I would take that money. It would start getting rental income. I'd buy another piece of property with cash. So, and now, it's benefited me this year because even if I didn't do any deals, I could still make it off of the rental income that I have, rent to own income, but I call it rental income. And that's kind of what this is exactly the reason I was setting up for, and I'll go home and tell my wife, man, it's so slow and I'm not getting me deals. But there again, I know probably going to be okay because I still have this other income no matter what, Yeah. I still hate it. I'm a deal junkie. I like to do deals, but there again, I was just kind of setting that up for slow times like this. Yeah.
And I think it's really important to know yourself. And, to me, that was a perfect example, because you were like, hey, I'm going to look out, because what I don't even know what's going to happen in the future. So I'm going to do this, but you're still a deal junkie. So you still wanted to do deals. Yeah. Matthew Whitaker, who started Evernest, he's different. We were doing a lot of deals, but then he was like, I don't like the deal. I like the grind. And so that's why in real estate, we moved to a property management model, just because we enjoy the grind. He specifically enjoyed the grind, and he liked the idea of recurring revenue regardless of market cycle, because everybody's going to rent a place. There's always going to be houses to rent.
Yeah. Yeah. That recurring revenue is the main, my whole thing was, I don't want to, now I don't buy anything unless, and I'm going to call it passive income. We know no income's truly passive, but
right.
We'll call it passive income. I don't buy anything unless passive income can pay for it, right? So I want to make sure that let's say I shut down, I can't do any more deals. I want to make sure the lifestyle I have is paid for by reoccurring income coming in. Maybe tight, but you could still make it, instead of having all these bills reliant, because I know tons of flippers that's all they do is flip, and that's great. They make great money, but if you don't have anything else and the deals dry up, what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah. You won't have any income, and then then you get resourceful and figure out how to adapt.
That's true. Yeah. Some people just, some people with their back against the wall can do, and I'm good when it comes to that too, but also I don't really want that amount of stress if I don't have to.
That's right. Yeah. So. That amount of stress sometimes can lead you to make decisions you don't need to make.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so did y'all have to, when you were home investors, back that time, did y'all have to adapt to any of that kind of stuff, or was it pretty much just a system that?
For us, it was what the system allowed you to figure out what you really wanted to do. You could flip, you could wholesale, you could buy rentals, you could do, rent to own. I did a couple of those. You could do whatever you really wanted to do. And then just, hey, what worked for me? Their system was all about finding deals. It was all it was just a marketing system to get you deal. And then, they taught you how to do the other stuff, but the system was all about, hey, give us your money, come together as an ad council. You've got 5 franchisees in Birmingham. Y'all are all pulling your money together. So our ad council budget may have been $30,000 to $40,000 a month. How many billboards can we buy? And those billboards should produce X amount of leads every single month. And then whatever you do with those leads, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's like we'll get you the leads for sure. Like that's our part, but like you closing deals, that's up to you.
You closing deals, figuring out how to close deals, how to monetize the deals that you do close when you buy it. What are you going to do with it? And so that we had to figure out on our own.
Yeah, and not to get too much into that, but did they take a portion of each deal or how?
Yeah. You paid them. So they were getting a little bit from the advertising dollars, but then you were paying them every deal you bought.
Okay.
Every time you bought a deal, you paid them. Okay. And I can't remember how much it was.
So you just had to factor that into your.
You had to factor that into the thing. So it was like a monthly. We paid an upfront fee, then we paid per deal that we did. So of course they wanted you to do a lot of deals because you would pay them a few $100s every single deal. And then I can't remember what other fees there were. It wasn't too many. So I think back when we got out of it, I think they've changed the model. So it's a little bit different now, but
Yeah. Well, Brian, the guy we always talk about, he says they're good at finding houses for sure.
Yeah, they definitely were. And that was the time when there wasn't a lot of outside competition, right? There weren't a lot of national wholesalers. There weren't any institutions buying. So it was just
a little bit easier, maybe.
A little bit easier. Yeah, it was just all of us here in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So, all right. What's another intangible? I think this one kind of ties into all that, and that's curiosity and willingness to learn. I think, when we got into it, I didn't really know anything in real estate. So I had to learn everything, but I wanted to. Yeah. I wanted to learn all about, I wanted to learn how to do a rent to own. I wanted to learn how to flip or wholesale, how to own rentals. If you constantly need to be learning. I never did any subject twos, but I know even back then that was pretty popular. And so just having this open mindset, I think it's kind of like Carol Dweck wrote a book called I think growth mindset. Or no, it's just called mindset. And she talks about the difference between a static mindset and a growth mindset. Yep. Growth mindset, people always want to learn. They always want, this kind of goes back to adaptability and problem solving and overcoming obstacles and having grit and determination. Yep. It's just this willingness to say, hey, if this isn't working, what else will? And figuring that out. Have you noticed this in your business?
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you're the same way. I mean, I have a lot of flaws and stuff too. But one thing I am good at, I feel like, is I'm very teachable. Like I'm willing to sit down. Like there's some of these guys that are even younger than me in their 20s, and then they sit down with somebody who's 65, and they're like, this person's old. They don't know what they're doing. It's not the same market. I'm like, hey, these people have been here like anybody. Even there's, Trey, a guy that we know here in Birmingham. He's only 5 years older than me, and he's, 100 times more successful than I am. And he, like, anything he says, I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm just sitting there writing it down. Like, because he's such a good dude, but he's also very smart. So I think one good thing, and I think you're the same way, is being able to sit down and learn from other people and like being teachable. Because if somebody comes to me and they're trying to tell me, hey, you might want to do it this way. Obviously, I'm not just going to take their advice without looking into it, but they may be giving you some nuggets there, some words of wisdom.
Yeah, and I always like to look for clues, right? So clues of success. And so if somebody is, and listen, there are a million gurus online that will talk about all this stuff. You don't know if they're successful or not. Yep. That's why it's so important to have friends that are successful, because then when you sit down and have lunch with them, like a Trey or a Brian or somebody else, you can sit there and you're like, I'm completely open to learn, because I know I don't know everything, and I see the clues that they've been successful in what they've done. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's why I actually enjoyed going to the RIA meetings. And I wasn't really ever interested in listening to the people who were presenting, because they're kind of getting paid to go around or whatever. They're there to make money. I always wanted to hang out with the people in the back, because they were there to socialize, and they were the ones doing all the deals.
That's right.
And so I would go in the back and hang out with them and get to learn what they were doing, hear their deals, and then just ask them tons of questions, take them out to coffee, take them out to lunch. And I think a teachable spirit is something that will go a long, long way. Not a gullible. You can't be gullible and you can't be like easily influenced, but you can be teachable and learn a lot.
Yeah, well, it hit me one day when I was going to eat lunch over on Highway 280, and I pulled up, and there was 3 guys that were, I mean, millionaires, and like they pulled up in like 10, 12-year-old pickups wearing cargo shorts and like a t like. You walk in, you're like, I don't know where they work. Maybe they work at Home Depot. Maybe they work. I mean, who knows what they do? You know, all these millionaires just sitting here like.
That's the millionaire next door.
That's right, exactly. You know, and I'm like, man, these are my private lenders here. I'm like, these are the guys I'm getting money from. You know, so I'm going to listen to them because they're obviously doing something right.
I would rather listen to them than listen to the person that pulls up in a Lamborghini.
Oh, exactly.
And, you know, that's just me. But
yeah, no, I mean, some people make so much money that a Lamborghini is the same.
And I'm not knocking Lamborghinis.
Yeah,
I would love a Lamborghini. Don't get me wrong, but yes,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of it's just smoke and mirrors, and we've talked about this before. I'll owner finance to somebody that they may show up in a 97 Tacoma with drywall all over them, and they've got 40 grand in cash, or the guy that pulls up in a Tesla who's like paycheck to paycheck and he's got a suit on and like nobody knows because he's making this like outward appearance of he's super successful.
Are you knocking Teslas? Are you
No,
really
man,
knocking
no.
his American-made car? I'm
No,
kidding.
I'm not. I think they're awesome. I don't know if I'd have one yet. I'm still so in that gas mindset, but they are awesome.
You're driving a truck. I bought a truck when I started investing in real estate. I remember buying an F-150, and my license tag was buy ugly.
Oh yeah,
because we buy ugly houses.
Yeah.
All right. So let's end with this one because I think this is a good one to end with that you and I could probably tell story after story about, and that's integrity and reputation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to be in this business for the long haul, you've got to have integrity and a good reputation. There are a million ways to make money in the short run and ruin your reputation in the market, in the business. And you can like squeeze all you can out in a short amount of time. And I'm thinking of someone here in our city who was doing this. So he was doing, he and his wife were they were traveling to California. They were traveling to Florida. They were going to all these RIA meetings. And they were essentially selling these incredible deals back here in Birmingham, Alabama. They're like, hey, this deal, like I've got a list of houses that you could buy. You'll cash flow X amount. You can buy them for this. We'll do the renovation. We'll collect your rent, blah, 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 blah. Here's what the cost is. Or here's what he was charging. So what he was doing, they were selling these houses. So they would go through and sell the houses. So they made money on the sell. They were supposedly like turnkey providers. Mm-hmm. And then they would say, now we need money for the renovations. People would pay them money for renovations, tens of thousands of dollars, and they would do jack squat to these houses.
Yeah.
They would do jack squat. And they had so much of this going on. Maybe one or two they would do, and they would get them rented, but others they wouldn't. And so we started getting calls from investors from around the country, and they were like, hey, I own this house at so-and-so street. Would you go by and look at it? I'm like, what are you talking about? I would have these conversations. Mm-hmm. They're like, we bought this house from so-and-so. And I was like, oh, that's a warning sign.
What year was this?
This was 2000, probably 2015, 2016. Okay. And I was like, yeah, I'll go out and look at it. And I would go out there, and I'll never forget going out there, and they had taken a picture of an HVAC that they had installed. Mm-hmm. The person had paid them for an HVAC, and they're like, hey, here's a picture of it. Wasn't the house. Jeez. There was no HVAC there.
Wow.
The house, it was in total shambles. And I had to go back and tell them, no, there's nothing that's been done.
Yeah.
And I copied the seller on an email and said, hey, the house, I just went out to it. And he replied back and he said, well, I'm going to have to get to the bottom of this. My maintenance guy must not have done da.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew he was lying.
They can always throw it off on somebody else.
Yeah, I literally knew he was lying. I was like, I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
And so anyway, those guys had to fly in from Seattle, Washington was where they lived, these buyers. And we had to take them on a tour of all their houses that they had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to rehab and nothing had been done.
Yeah.
these people, they may have made a lot of money back then, but they were run out of town.
Yeah.
Like they were run out of town. That's right. They had to go out of town. They had lawsuits, followed them everywhere they went. They tried to reinvent themselves. They started naming different company, like they had different company names. It just all fell apart. So that's a big story, but I will tell you that happens in small little micro stories in real estate almost every single day. People sacrifice their reputation for money.
Yep. And you know about those. There's tons of good investors, good property managers that you've probably never heard of. But if you're a bad one, people are going to know about it. You know,
that's right.
It's like, and there's probably 15 people I could tell you right now that I would say if that name gets mentioned, I'm just going to say, look, hey, you might want to stay away from them, you know, for this reason or that reason or whatever. But yeah, I think integrity is the biggest thing. Because when I was wholesaling, I remember wholesaling to a pretty big company here in Birmingham, and they had a guy that was doing the work for them. And I remember, you know, he was like, well, you know, Adam, we can't pay this much because we're going to have to do this, 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 and this. And like, I see it, you know, basically as a turnkey that they're selling on Zillow or whatever. And I go by there and look at it, and like, I can look through the window and see the floors like wavy, you know, and they painted over peeling paint already. And then probably enough, like you said, to send a picture to an investor that's not in state so they can say, hey, look, we painted your house. We put a roof on it. They put a roof on it over 3 other layers of roofing that you can't see, you know, and it's still wavy. You're just putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% you're right about integrity. And like, that's one thing I'll have people tell me all the time, like not all the time, but 2 or 3 people I know, they're like, why do you do that? Because I'll go and I'll tell people, even though right now I need deals, I mean, I want more deals than what I'm getting, but I'll tell people the first thing, if I walk into a nice house, you're going to get more money if you sell this on the market, like 1,000%. And they're like, well, we thought we might, but we've never sold a house before. We've been here for 50 years, but you know, they've got in the last 10 years, roof, everything's remodeled, you know, somewhat. It's nice and livable. And I'm like, this will pass an inspection. Like, you're going to get more money if you put it on the market. Some people are like, we don't want to wait. We can't do it. But some people, like, you know, would go in there and say, oh, you're never going to sell this on the market. You need to sell it to me or whatever, you know.
Anything to get a deal.
I think it all comes back to you, though. You know?
It does come back to you. That's right. I mean, we would even tell people if we weren't planning on closing on their deal, like, listen, we don't want to buy your house, or we can't make the numbers work, but maybe we can sell it to somebody.
Yeah.
And so we're going to put it under contract, and then we're going to sell your contract. Are you okay with that? And they would be, yeah, that's fine. If they were, you know, motivated.
Yeah, if they're actually motivated.
If they were actually motivated. But then other people, like 95% of the stuff, we just closed anyway. We went ahead and bought it, and because we told them we were going to do it. And, you know, I don't know. I just think that there's so many ways to cheat, and there's so many ways to lie and to steal in this business. And it's short-sighted, and it will always come back. And I think, to your point, you know, bite you in the end.
Yeah, it's tempting. I mean, I could see where it would be tempting if you were a person with no integrity. Like, you could easily take advantage of people. A, I don't want to do that to people because I do have integrity. And 2, it's such a small market. Even if I wanted to do it, I wouldn't, because your reputation is going to be, you're not going to need more deals. You know?
That's right. Your reputation gets found out. I mean, and it's really interesting. You know, I would say, and that's why it hurts. I mean, we're obviously property managers over here at Evernest. We get called a scam by so many people. And I'm like, if you only knew the lengths that we went to have a good reputation and to tell the truth, even if it costs us money, we will tell the truth.
Yeah.
Now, if you've had a bad experience with us, then maybe that's our fault because bad customer service, or we screwed up somehow, which happens 100%, especially when you're managing 20,000 doors. But when people go out and say this is a scam, they're cheaters and all, I'm like, that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
And that's why it's tough. I mean, property management is a freaking tough business because you have owners with high expectations, you have residents with high expectations, and we're kind of in the middle fighting fires and dealing with problems all the time. And when it comes to people's money in real estate, people get super heated about that. But
yeah, and that's the last thing I'll say about on this topic is, like, you know, the We Buy Houses, like, I've got it on my hat, I wear it on my, it's just like a slogan. Every time I pull up somebody's house, they say, oh, you own the We Buy Houses business. I'm like, no, that's like a slogan. pretty much all investors use. It's like we buy junk cars or, we buy old car part, whatever it is. Like it just lets people easily know we cut grass, whatever it is, what we do. So everybody thinks that We Buy Houses one big company, like it's the We Buy Houses company, kind of like the home investors, We Buy Ugly Houses. But obviously we know it's not. But when I remember this one time specifically, I was like 2 years into wholesaling, and I called this person on the worst possible day about his grandmother's house. You get these numbers and you call them. And this one I was cold calling myself, and I just happened to be the one that, the straw that broke the camel's back. 15 people had called this guy in the last 2 days, and they were all We Buy Houses type companies, wholesalers. I called him, and I had never called the guy before. He said, look, I've told you 10 times not to call me back. This is my grandmother's house. She just died. He was very emotional, rightfully so. And I was like, look, I'm sorry. This is the first time I've called you. No, it's not. You've called me every day for, 10 days in a row. And I just tried to explain to him, trying to be calm. So long story short, he, filed a complaint against me for the Better Business Bureau, like all this stuff, just because I called him on that day, and I never called him before in my life. So I just called this guy back and just tried to talk to him. He finally calmed down. He was like, I'll retract my, review or whatever. But, I don't know, all that to say, like it's, when it comes to your reputation, people think you're this one big company, but I do try to have integrity. And if somebody tells me not to call them, I'm not going to do it. But sometimes, you can't help when they think you're one big company, and you kind of get the worst end of that.
Yeah, and sometimes people will just kind of lump real estate investors in with everybody, right? If somebody has a bad experience, or somebody gets cheated, or somebody thinks a certain way about real estate investors, oh, well, they're all, trying to take advantage of people. Yep. They'll lump you in with that, and there's nothing you can do about that. Mm-hmm. The only thing you can do is control what you can control.
Well, same thing with property managers. I mean, if somebody's like, hey, my aunt got evicted by her management company, y'all are all scammers,
Yeah, that's right.
They just put y'all in one.
That's right. And so all you can do is just try to act with integrity in every single situation and tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
I think over the long haul, over a long career, that's going to serve you better than like cutting corners and taking shortcuts.
It does, but it does suck when somebody else gets a deal that is a piece of garbage person, and they get the deal, and you've been to that house and made an offer, but somehow or another they slick talk their way into getting this deal.
That's right.
But what are you going to do? It's going to come back to you eventually.
That's right. But that's part of the competitive nature of all this stuff too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But all right, Adam, anything else you want to add here?
I think that's it.
I think there's a good intangibles. Like these are things that I think every successful real estate investor that I've ever met has had. And so let us know. If you think of anything, don't hesitate to let us know. You can leave a comment on our YouTube page. And then if you would, I'd love if you would leave us a review. Leave us a review on the podcast. Leave us a review or subscribe on our YouTube channel. Any way you can support and subscribe, we'd like for you to do that. All right, everybody, that's it for this week's episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor. We'll be back next week with a new episode.